Welcome to Research Business Daily Report, where market researchers come for news, insights, and commentary about their field, gaining knowledge and assorted valuable information that impacts them both inside and outside their current place of business. Today, a 30-year research veteran of the client side speaks with us about what has been afflicting client insights departments. And I say afflicting because it's gotten to the point that many of them are no longer guaranteed a place at the decision-making table, and others have already lost it. RBDR is sponsored today and this week by RFL Communications' new service, RFL Client Consulting. We have up-close and personal experiences over 23 years with market research and insights departments of all shapes and sizes across myriad of business categories. So we are poised to work with client research functions to elevate their internal standing and, more importantly, to elevate their effectiveness and efficiency. You can visit the RFL Communications website, rflonline.com, to learn more, or you can email me, rflbob@gmail.com, and we can talk things over. Client research and insights departments have always put special emphasis on the so-called seat at the table. Sharing their results and expressing their opinions to their company's C-suite has not only been a goal, but the ultimate sign of corporate respect. And in the early 2000s, that seat at the table was often an automatic for research departments. In fact, they had earned it. In fact, I know several research executives who 10 or so years ago were interviewing for top client insight department roles. But these quality research executives quickly, on the spot, turned down their position because that proverbial seat at the table was just not even built into the department's responsibilities. One of them I recall saying to me, "Why should I go through the process again of having to prove I belong there?" Just a few years later, however, many well-situated client departments saw their seat starting to fade from view or to lose it already. Something had happened. Well, actually, several developments had taken place, which is why we invited Olin Hoover for 30 years at client research executives at some of America's greatest CPG companies, including General Mills, Mars, Master Foods, Uncle Ben's, and Campbell's Soup, to join us today. Olin witnessed and experienced a series of changes that appeared at the time to make all the sense in the world for them, only to discover later that some of the things they had elected to do had not only diminished their contributions to the company, but watered down their importance, their image, and in the end, their profiles inside their organization. Inadvertently, their actions had distanced themselves further and further from that decision-making table. Olin recently chatted with me about the changes I'm alluding to here, and he has specific ideas how a client insights department can regain status, prominence, and the C-suite's high regard and respect.
In many ways, we have lost a seat at the table. And the first reason I would attribute to maybe a little bit of the environment. We're moving into a world where it's becoming easier and easier and easier for anyone to find somebody outside of the organization who can execute a study online or in person or however, do the analysis and the interpretation. And that is a function that the research department used to own, that they don't own as strongly as they used to, simply because it's easy to find people to do that.
But is that also a factor of the research department not making it clear enough that yes, there's research and then there's real research? Because that was the explanation that was used to basically push away DIY when it first showed up. But there's an awful lot of DIY out there now that is being used and relied upon.
In many ways, I think you're right. We have not done a good job of separating the really quality stuff from the tons of lower quality and in some cases just plain lousy work that's out there. But even so, I would say that it's fairly easy to go through a network and discover people who have been very successful at this and have done a good job. And almost anybody can do it, and you don't have to be in a research function to do that anymore in the same way that we did in the past. The network has become much broader.
Is cost a much bigger issue now than years ago when you were in your prime in the research
Mhm.
industry on the client side?
In many ways, it is. We have become focused on not only the cost but the time that it takes to execute research. And as an artifact of that, maybe we have lost a lot of the staff and the funding that research organizations used to have to really dig down deep and to develop and polish and burnish the work that we did into really quality work. So I think cost has played a role in that. And an artifact of that, I think, is that we have shifted a lot of the responsibility for that kind of work outside of large manufacturing organizations to the supplier community and in some cases to the retailer community. And I think they've recognized that there's an opportunity there and done a very nice job actually of filling that hole.
And we've done that thinking that it was going to make our job as researchers easier. Let somebody else deal with those things.
It may have made it much easier, but it also made us less important to the organization. And I think as a function, we've had less impact as we've gone down that path. One time, research were the people who had the analytic and methodological expertise to design, build, and implement top-tier methodologies that were tailored to address specific needs within the organization.
So they had broad-based experience.
Broad-based experience, and I think that was critical. And in most cases, that was very hands-on experience that the researchers or the insight professionals had. So they really understood the details of what was happening. And importantly, they had the ability to communicate clear, concise, and compelling solutions to very difficult problems. And unfortunately, I think what many organizations have done is they've lost that critical skill and have devolved into teams of people who now broker transactions almost between suppliers and end users within the organizations. And when there are thorny questions that result, as there always are, they often rely on external experience instead of the internal expertise within the organization.
Okay. Are there solutions?
I'm going to outline three of them. The first one is an education issue. I think it's critical that the insight community regain that expertise that will allow them to provide critical insight and turn problems into opportunities. And unless we have a detailed understanding of some of the nuts and bolts, the methodology, the analytics, and the technology, we're not going to be the experts in the room. I think it's important that we become better communicators. We need to have the ability to really take complex data and turn it into insightful dialogue that the organization can then easily understand and leverage to develop products and services that meet the needs of consumers that they serve. And that's a critical skill that I think we have not done a good job of building within our organization.
How do we imbue that inside people who may not come to it naturally?
I think there is some natural aptitude that we ought to look for within people. But then I think a lot of it is simply a training exercise. Give people the experience to do that. We spent a lot of time educating people on how to tell better stories. And, fundamentally, people are emotional creatures. We link up with stories. And I'm not saying that we ought to be spreading fiction within the research industry, but we ought to take those skill sets to be able to take very complex ideas and boil them down into things that can be easily shared, easily understood within a very short period of time so that anybody in the organization can grasp the idea and run with it. I think it's important that we invest in our industry. I'm not saying that we should shift development away from suppliers back to the manufacturer base like it was when I started, but we ought to leverage those ideas that are bubbling up all over the industry now and find a way to provide seed money and maybe even more importantly, project opportunities so that those ideas can be developed, built, fine-tuned, and leveraged within the industry. And I think that's a critically important element.
Do these funds come from the industry itself and its players? Does it come from the companies that you work for? On the
I think it could come from a variety of places, Bob. I think academia is one great place to start funding it, and leveraging maybe networks of academic communities to start to build and develop these ideas. I think there's also a case to be made that there are industry groups that ought to be able to align to do this. So non-competing organizations ought to be willing to share ideas. Mm-hmm. And then there are times when if there's an idea that may suit my organization particularly well, there's nothing wrong with me saying, you know what, I'm going to put some seed money into that, and maybe there's a deal that we can cook up that says, we've got proprietary access to this for the next 3 to 5 years, but we want you to work exclusively for our organization in this area and develop that idea, and then we can leverage it, and then down the road you can buy us out, or you can start to sell it, to other clients. But for a period of time, it's something that we ought to have proprietary interest in.
That's your Research Business Daily Report. We hope you have a great research day, and we'll look forward to seeing you back here with us tomorrow.